Under stormy North Carolina skies, the Sapphire Coast Aquarium is tense. An orca's fin cuts through turbulent water, restless, powerful, unpredictable. Jessica Redcliffe, a dedicated trainer, believed her bond with this orca was unbreakable. In a single, violent moment, that trust was destroyed. Jessica's life ended by the very creature she loved. This is the story of that tragic day, the warning signs and the lessons we must not ignore. Stay with us for a gripping look at the fatal consequences of underestimating nature's fury. Jessica Redcliffe, 29, was the pride of Sapphire Coast Aquarium, a marine biologist whose passion for orcas began in childhood. Her career soared, earning her awards and the lead trainer position. At the center of her world was Sapphire, a massive orca showing increasing signs of stress, worn teeth, repetitive circling, agitation. A new filtration system's constant hum only worsened Sapphire's distress. Jessica, confident in their bond, dismissed these red flags as temporary. That confidence would soon have devastating consequences. Jessica's love for the ocean began as a child on North Carolina's coast. An orca sighting at age 8 set her life's course: marine biology and a mission to connect people with these majestic animals. She excelled at university, focusing on orca behavior and communication. Her goal bridged the gap between humans and orcas, inspiring respect and advocacy. Jessica's journey was fueled by a single, unforgettable encounter on the Atlantic. That dream would lead her to both triumph and tragedy. In 2019, Jessica joined Sapphire Coast Aquarium, quickly rising to lead trainer. Her innovative, compassionate methods set her apart. She became the face of the aquarium and a champion for marine conservation. Audiences were captivated by her shows, which blended spectacle with education. Jessica's work earned her national recognition and awards, but with fame came pressure. She was responsible for the health and safety of the aquarium's most powerful animals. She believed in her methods and her bond with the orcas. Behind the scenes, she was walking a dangerous line. Jessica's relationship with Sapphire, the orca matriarch, was the heart of her career. Years of captivity had left Sapphire stressed and unpredictable, but Jessica believed their connection was unique. She spent countless hours observing and soothing Sapphire, convinced her presence could calm the orca's anxieties. Colleagues warned her to be cautious, but Jessica's faith in their bond was unwavering. She saw warning signs: agitation, aggression, but trusted they could overcome them together. This trust blinded her to the growing danger. It would ultimately lead to tragedy. Sapphire's story began in the wild North Atlantic, torn from her family and thrust into captivity. Years in a concrete tank brought stress, boredom, and self-harm, her teeth worn down from gnawing the enclosure. The artificial environment, constant noise, and isolation took a heavy toll. Sapphire's distress was visible: repetitive circling, aggression, and physical scars. Experts warn these are red flags, signs of a breaking point. An apex predator, confined and suffering, becomes unpredictable. The tragedy was not a matter of if, but when. In the months leading up to the fatal incident, Sapphire's behavior grew increasingly erratic and alarming. The installation of the new filtration system in the summer of 2025 seemed to be a significant catalyst. The constant low-frequency hum it produced was a new and inescapable irritant in her environment. Staff members noted a marked increase in her agitation. She would often slap her massive tail fluke against the water's surface with tremendous force, a display known as tail slapping, which in this context was not a playful gesture for the crowd, but a clear signal of annoyance and aggression. It was a warning, a physical expression of her growing unease that was becoming harder to ignore. The warnings escalated beyond just tail slaps. During a morning rehearsal on October 2, 2025, the very day of the attack, Sapphire exhibited an even more disturbing behavior. As trainers prepared for the day, she suddenly and forcefully rammed the metal gate separating the main performance pool from her back enclosure. The impact sent a shudder through the structure, a shocking display of her raw power and frustration. Simultaneously, she began emitting a series of high-pitched, sharp vocalizations. These were not the normal clicks and whistles of communication. They were distress calls, an acoustic alarm that signaled a state of extreme agitation, likely triggered by the relentless hum of the nearby machinery. Jessica Redcliffe observed these events firsthand. As the lead trainer, she meticulously recorded Sapphire's gate ramming and unusual vocalizations in the daily behavioral log. She was a trained marine biologist and knew, on an intellectual level, what these behaviors signified: Yet, her interpretation was filtered through the powerful lens of her bond with the animal. In her notes, she attributed Sable's outburst to temporary stress and a bad mood. She believed that her calming presence and familiar cues would be enough to settle the massive orca, to pull her back from the edge. She fundamentally underestimated the depth of Sable's distress, viewing it as a passing storm rather than a gathering hurricane. This miscalculation was a critical failure in judgment, one that her concerned colleagues tried to prevent. Several other trainers and aquarium staff members had voiced their worries about Sable's recent unpredictability. They noted her increasing resistance to cues and her general air of agitation. Some even urged Jessica to cancel the poolside interactions for the evening show, suggesting she use remote training tools from a safer distance on the raised platform. But Jessica, confident in her unique connection and years of shared history with Sable, overruled their concerns. She was determined to stand by her partner's side, tragically underestimating the untamable wild spirit that still echoed within the captive giant. The history of orcas in captivity is fraught with danger, a stark reminder that these are not domesticated animals. Since the 1970s, there have been dozens of documented incidents of orca aggression towards trainers, including 4 fatal attacks. These statistics paint a grim picture. They underscore the inherent unpredictability of keeping an apex predator in a highly artificial and stressful environment. An orca's bite force, estimated to be as high as 19,000 pounds per square inch, means that a single moment of aggression, a single snap decision by the animal, can be instantly catastrophic. Every interaction carries a life-or-death risk, a fact that should have been at the forefront of every safety protocol. Experts in marine mammal behavior have long warned about the specific dangers of close in-water and poolside interactions. They argue that such proximity fosters a false sense of security in the trainer and blurs the necessary boundaries between a wild animal and its human caretaker. When an orca becomes stressed or agitated, its instinct is to react physically. If a trainer is within reach, they can become the target of that frustration, not out of malice, but out of a primal response to a perceived threat or irritant. The warnings from experts are unequivocal. Maintaining a safe distance and using protected contact methods are not optional precautions, but essential life-saving measures. Despite these industry-wide warnings and the specific concerns raised by her own staff, Jessica chose to proceed with the show as planned. Her unwavering faith in her bond with Sable was her guiding principle. She believed their relationship transcended the typical trainer-animal dynamic. In her mind, they were partners, and partners did not abandon each other during moments of stress. This deep emotional investment, while born from a place of love and dedication, created a dangerous blind spot. It prevented her from objectively assessing the clear and present danger that Sable's escalating agitation represented. She was betting her life on the power of their connection to overcome the animal's powerful instincts. Standing at the edge of the pool that evening, Jessica made a fatal gamble. She placed her trust in the bond she had forged, believing it was stronger than the immense pressures of captivity that were weighing on Sable. She ignored the echoes of Sable's wild past, the physical evidence of her chronic stress, and the immediate warnings from that very morning. To be alone at the water's edge with a 9,800-pound predator that had explicitly demonstrated its distress was to court disaster. This misplaced confidence, this tragic betrayal of trust, set the stage for the horrific events that were about to unfold before the eyes of a horrified, sold-out crowd. The evening of October 2nd, 2025, descended upon the Sapphire Coast Aquarium with an air of theatrical drama. Under the twilight sky of North Carolina, the stadium lights cast a brilliant glow upon the churning, deep blue water of the main performance pool. A sold-out crowd buzzed with excitement, their faces illuminated by the vibrant lights, eagerly awaiting the grand finale of the evening show. Children pointed with wide-eyed wonder, their parents captivated by the spectacle. The atmosphere was electric, a perfect stage for the celebrated partnership between Jessica Redcliffe and Sable, the aquarium's magnificent star. For the audience, this was pure entertainment. For Jessica, it was the culmination of her life's work, a moment she had lived for countless times. Jessica stood poised at the edge of the pool, a familiar figure in her sleek, dark wetsuit. She commanded the arena with a confident grace, her voice clear and steady as she guided Sable through a series of high-energy maneuvers. The massive orca leaped and spun, sending shimmering curtains of water cascading across the pool, each movement seemingly synchronized with Jessica's signals. The performance was flawless, a testament to the years of training and the bond they shared. To the mesmerized crowd, the connection between woman and whale appeared to be one of perfect harmony, a beautiful dance between two distinct yet connected beings, a living embodiment of interspecies trust and communication. As the show neared its climax, Jessica prepared for the final signature move, the tail wave finale. This was a crowd favorite, a gentle and playful gesture where Sable would lift her enormous tail fluke and wave it slowly from side to side, bidding the audience farewell. Jessica raised her arm, giving the familiar hand signal that had initiated this behavior hundreds of times before. She smiled out at the cheering spectators, anticipating the successful conclusion to another thrilling performance. In this moment, under the bright lights and the roar of the crowd, the alarming signs from that morning must have felt like a distant memory, easily dismissed as a minor hiccup in an otherwise perfect partnership. But as Jessica held the signal, something was wrong. Sable's usually fluid and responsive movements suddenly faltered. The orca, instead of moving into position for the tail wave, stopped dead in the water. She turned, her immense body repositioning with a deliberate, unnerving stillness. Her eyes, usually engaged and focused on Jessica's cues, now locked onto her trainer with a chilling, fixed intensity. The playful energy that had filled the stadium just moments before evaporated, replaced by a sudden, palpable tension. The grand finale was about to take a terrifying and unforeseen turn, as the bond Jessica trusted so deeply began to unravel in the most horrific way imaginable. A heavy silence fell over the pool, a stark contrast to the cheering crowd. The connection between Jessica and Sable, once a conduit for communication and trust, now felt like a taut wire, vibrating with dangerous energy. Jessica held her position at the water's edge, her smile frozen on her face, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her features. She may have tried to repeat the signal, perhaps calling out Sable's name, attempting to re-establish their familiar routine. But Sable remained motionless, her gaze unwavering. She was no longer the willing performer. She was a 9,800-pound predator, coiled and waiting, her instincts overriding years of conditioning. Then, with speed and power that defied her immense size, Sable exploded into motion. It was not a graceful leap, but a surge of raw, explosive force. She propelled herself forward, a black and white torpedo of muscle and bone, covering the distance in a heartbeat. The water erupted around her, sending a wave crashing over spectators. The spectacle transformed into primal terror. The audience's cheers turned to gasps, their minds struggling to process what was happening. Before Jessica could react, before she could step back, Sable was upon her. The orca's massive jaws clamped down on Jessica's arm. The attack was swift, precise, and brutally efficient. It was not a warning. It was a definitive, possessive act. The gentle giant Jessica had trusted had turned on her with wild fury. The bond was violently shattered in a single, terrifying moment. The world dissolved into water and chaos. With Jessica's arm in her jaws, Sable did not release her. She dragged the trainer off the platform into the deep water. The sudden pull was inescapable. Jessica was plunged into churning water, her body disappearing beneath the surface. The crowd's gasp turned to horrified screams as they realized this was not part of the show. This was a brutal, real-life attack, and they were all unwilling witnesses. The moment Jessica was pulled underwater, the stadium erupted into sheer pandemonium. The festive atmosphere of the family-friendly show was instantly obliterated, replaced by a cacophony of terror. Screams echoed off the high ceilings of the arena as spectators, many with young children, scrambled to their feet in panic. Some shielded their eyes, unable to watch the horror unfolding in the pool, while others stood frozen, their cell phones still recording, capturing the tragedy in stark, horrifying detail. The seamless illusion of a safe and magical entertainment experience had been ripped away, exposing the raw and deadly reality of a predator's power in a confined space. Below the surface, the attack intensified with horrifying violence. Sable, with Jessica still in her grip, began to thrash and roll in the water. This was not a random act of panic. This was a predatory behavior seen in wild orcas when they are killing prey. The orca initiated a violent death roll, a powerful, spiraling motion designed to disorient, disable, and drown. Jessica was whipped around relentlessly, her body completely at the mercy of the 9,800-pound animal. The churning water became a vortex of violence, making it impossible for anyone on the surface to see exactly what was happening in the depths below. But the brutal thrashing was unmistakable. The response from the aquarium staff was immediate but tragically ineffective against the sheer force of the rampaging orca. Emergency alarms blared through the stadium as other trainers rushed to the edge of the pool. They slapped the surface of the water with their hands and buckets, a standard technique used to distract an orca and get its attention. They shouted Sable's name, their voices filled with desperation. A veterinarian quickly prepared a tranquilizer dart, but getting a clear shot at the rapidly moving, thrashing whale was nearly impossible. Even if a dart had hit its mark, the sedatives would take several precious minutes to have any effect, time that Jessica simply did not have. The chaos escalated as trainers deployed large, heavy nets into the pool, a last-ditch effort to try and separate Sable from her victim or corral her into a smaller area. However, the plan backfired catastrophically. Sable's relentless thrashing and spiraling movements quickly tangled the nets, turning them from a potential rescue tool into a deadly underwater obstacle. The churning water, now filled with tangled ropes and a panicked, powerful orca, became even more treacherous for the rescue divers who were frantically preparing to enter. The situation was spiraling out of control, each failed attempt compounding the horror and diminishing the hope of a successful rescue. With all surface-level interventions failing, the only remaining option was a direct underwater rescue. A team of highly trained emergency divers, equipped with scuba gear, quickly assembled at the edge of the pool. Their mission was fraught with extreme peril. They had to enter a relatively small body of water occupied by a distressed and hyper-aggressive 5-ton orca, a creature that had just demonstrated its lethal capabilities. The water was a murky, churning soup of tangled nets and the orca's own powerful movements, creating near-zero visibility and an environment of unpredictable danger. Every second that passed made the already slim chances of survival even slimmer. The divers plunged into the chaotic water, their lights cutting feeble beams through the turmoil. Their immediate goal was to locate Jessica and attempt to free her from Sable's grasp. This required them to get dangerously close to the enraged animal. They carried bang sticks or acoustic deterrents, devices designed to emit a loud sound to startle the orca into releasing its grip, but using them was risky. Such an action could just as easily provoke Sable into an even more violent response, further endangering not only Jessica, but the divers themselves. It was a desperate gamble, a calculated risk taken in the face of an unfolding tragedy. For what felt like an eternity, the struggle continued in the depths of the tank. The divers worked frantically, battling the tangled nets and the powerful currents created by the thrashing whale. On the surface, the remaining staff and emergency responders could only watch helplessly, their faces etched with horror and despair. The sold-out crowd was being hastily evacuated, their screams and cries echoing as they were ushered away from the horrific scene. The bright, cheerful lights of the stadium now illuminated a grim tableau of a rescue effort fighting against impossible odds, a stark contrast to the joyous show that had been taking place just minutes earlier. Finally, after several agonizing minutes, the divers succeeded in getting close enough. It is unclear whether Sable released Jessica on her own, or if the divers' presence and deterrence finally had an effect. They managed to secure Jessica and bring her limp body to the surface. Paramedics were waiting at the poolside, and she was immediately pulled from the water. But it was too late. The devastating injuries inflicted by the attack, crushed bones, severe internal trauma, and the effects of prolonged drowning were catastrophic and unsurvivable. Jessica Redcliffe, the passionate and dedicated trainer who had trusted her partner completely, was pronounced dead at the scene, her final moments a terrifying testament to nature's untamable power. In the chilling silence that followed the evacuation of the Sapphire Coast Aquarium, a grim investigation began. The primary question that haunted everyone, from the distraught staff to the global community, was simple yet profound. What went wrong? How could a bond so celebrated, a partnership built over years of dedication, unravel into such unspeakable violence? Investigators meticulously reviewed safety protocols, training logs, and witness testimonies. The evidence pointed not to a single, isolated failure, but to a cascade of overlooked warnings and a fundamental misunderstanding of the animal at the heart of the tragedy. The trust Jessica had placed in Sable was not just misplaced, it was built on a dangerously romanticized view of a wild predator. The critical failure lay in the interpretation of Sable's escalating stress behaviors. The gate-ramming incident on the morning of the attack was not a minor display of a bad mood, as Jessica's log suggested. It was a clear, unambiguous signal of extreme distress and aggression. In the wild, such an act would be a powerful territorial display, a final warning before a physical confrontation. Jessica's decision to proceed with a close-contact, poolside performance in the face of such a potent red flag was a catastrophic error in judgment. Her deep emotional connection to Sable created a fatal blind spot, causing her to downplay the severity of the orca's psychological state and overestimate her own ability to control the situation. Furthermore, the safety protocols in place at Sapphire Coast Aquarium proved to be tragically inadequate. While the aquarium had emergency procedures, they were designed for manageable incidents, not for a full-blown attack by a 5-ton animal that refused to release its victim. The reliance on surface distractions like water slaps and nets was futile against Sable's predatory focus. The delayed deployment of divers into the chaotic net-filled water highlighted a critical gap in their emergency response plan. There was no effective, immediate method to separate the trainer from the whale once an attack was underway, leaving Jessica completely vulnerable in the most crucial moments of the ordeal. Ultimately, the tragedy exposed the flawed premise that an apex predator like an orca can ever be considered truly predictable or safe in a captive environment. The inherent stresses of confinement, the small enclosures, the unnatural social groupings, the constant acoustic disturbances, create a psychological pressure cooker. Jessica's belief in her bond was powerful, but it could not overcome the biological and instinctual realities of the animal she loved. The trust was not mutual. For Sable, Jessica was a source of food and stimulation, but also a figure associated with the very environment that caused her immense suffering, a connection that finally and tragically snapped. The death of Jessica Redcliffe sent shockwaves through the marine park industry, forcing a painful and long-overdue reckoning with its safety practices. In the wake of the tragedy, regulatory bodies like the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, launched a comprehensive review of the protocols governing human interaction with captive orcas. The investigation concluded that existing guidelines were not enough to prevent such incidents. The Sapphire Coast tragedy became a catalyst for sweeping change, serving as a grim but powerful argument that the very nature of working with these animals needed to be fundamentally reevaluated to prioritize human safety above all else, even at the cost of the spectacle. One of the most immediate and significant changes was the implementation of a strict ban on all waterwork and poolside interactions with orcas. Trainers were no longer permitted to be in the water with the animals or to stand on submerged ledges at the pool's edge during performances. This new rule established a clear physical barrier between the trainers and the whales. All training and public demonstrations were now required to be conducted from a safe distance, using raised platforms and reinforced barriers that would prevent an orca from being able to lunge and pull a person into the tank. This shift to a protected contact model was a direct acknowledgement that proximity itself was an unacceptable risk. The incident also led to a complete overhaul of emergency response drills. Aquariums were mandated to develop and regularly practice specific protocols for an orca attack scenario. This included having a dedicated, fully equipped dive team on immediate standby during all performances, with a clear and practiced plan for entering the water safely. New tools, such as fast-acting tranquilizer delivery systems and specially designed lift floors that could raise the entire bottom of a medical pool in minutes, were developed. The goal was to create systems that did not rely on distracting a panicked animal, but instead physically and rapidly separated the animal from the human victim to prevent prolonged attacks and drowning. Beyond procedural and equipment changes, there was a renewed focus on recognizing and responding to the subtle signs of orca stress. Trainers received enhanced education on cetacean behavior, learning to identify early warning signs like changes in eye focus, jaw popping, and specific vocalizations as immediate triggers to halt a show. A no-go policy was widely adopted, empowering any member of the animal care team to cancel a performance if they felt an animal was not behaviorally sound, without fear of reprisal. The rulebook was rewritten in the wake of Jessica's death, transforming the industry's approach from one based on trust and showmanship to one grounded in caution and the unassailable respect for a wild animal's power. The aftermath of Jessica Redcliffe's death extended far beyond the walls of aquariums and the pages of regulatory manuals. Her story ignited a fierce public debate about the fundamental ethics of keeping orcas in captivity. Animal welfare organizations, armed with the tragic details of the attack, launched powerful campaigns highlighting the inherent cruelty of confining such intelligent, far-ranging, and socially complex animals for the sake of human entertainment. The narrative shifted dramatically. Sable was no longer seen by many as a monstrous killer, but as a victim of a stressful, unnatural environment who finally broke under the immense psychological pressure. Jessica's death became a martyr's cry for a new future for cetaceans. This groundswell of public opinion put immense pressure on marine parks and aquariums worldwide. Attendance at orca shows began to dwindle as audiences grew more aware of the animals' suffering. The once celebrated spectacle of leaping whales now seemed tainted by the knowledge of worn teeth, psychological distress, and the potential for deadly violence. In response to both public pressure and declining profits, many facilities began to phase out their orca breeding programs, ensuring that the current generation of captive orcas would be the last. The theatrical, circus-like shows were gradually replaced with more educational, documentary-style presentations that focused on natural behaviors observed from a safe distance. A vital part of this legacy has been the growing movement to create seaside sanctuaries. These are large, protected coastal areas or bays that are netted off from the open ocean, providing a more natural and vastly larger environment for retired captive orcas to live out their days. Here, they can experience natural ocean currents, swim greater distances, and interact with other marine life in a way that is impossible in a concrete tank. While returning a long-term captive orca to the fully open ocean is often not feasible, these sanctuaries offer a humane compromise, a way to provide them with a semblance of the life that was taken from them, a mission that Jessica herself would have surely championed. Jessica Redcliffe's passion for marine life was undeniable, and her story, though tragic, has become a powerful catalyst for positive change. Her legacy is not one of a failed trainer, but of a wake-up call that the world needed to hear. Through her loss, countless other lives, both human and animal, may be saved. The vital safety lessons learned from her final moments have permanently altered the industry, while her story continues to fuel the movement toward a more compassionate and respectful relationship with the ocean's magnificent giants. Her enduring message is a solemn reminder that our love for nature must be matched by our respect for its wild, untamable power. The tragic death of Jessica Redcliffe forced a profound and uncomfortable reevaluation of humanity's relationship with the ocean's most intelligent predators. For decades, the justification for keeping orcas in captivity was centered on education and conservation, arguing that these captive ambassadors inspired millions to care about their wild counterparts. However, Jessica's story, and the clear evidence of Sable's deep-seated stress, laid bare the inherent contradiction in this philosophy. How can we claim to be saving a species by causing immense suffering to individual members of it? The conversation shifted from how to make captivity safer to whether it should exist at all, questioning the morality of imprisoning such sentient beings for our entertainment. This ethical reckoning has given rise to a powerful and hopeful movement, the development of seaside sanctuaries. This is not a return to the sterile concrete tanks of the past, but a revolutionary step forward. These sanctuaries are vast, protected coastal bays, netted off from the open ocean but still providing a dynamic natural environment. Here, retired captive orcas can feel the ebb and flow of real tides, dive to greater depths, and interact with the natural rhythms of the sea. It is a compassionate compromise for animals that cannot be safely returned to the wild. It offers them a dignified retirement, a chance to simply be whales again. Imagine a future where orcas like Sable are no longer performers, but residents of these peaceful havens. In a sanctuary, the relentless hum of filtration pumps is replaced by the sounds of the ocean, and the roar of the crowd gives way to the calls of seabirds. They would have the space to swim for miles, to interact with natural marine life, and to form more natural social bonds with other retired whales. This model prioritizes the animals' welfare above all else, focusing on rehabilitation and providing them with an environment that respects their biological and psychological needs. It is a future built not on spectacle, but on genuine respect and restitution. The push for sanctuaries represents a paradigm shift in our thinking. It acknowledges the harm that captivity has caused and seeks to provide a meaningful solution. Supporting these projects through advocacy and funding is a crucial step toward creating a better future. It is a way to honor the memory of those like Jessica Redcliffe by ensuring that the animals she loved so deeply are given the chance to live out their lives in peace and dignity. This is the new dawn for orcas, a future where their well-being finally takes precedence over their entertainment value, a truly lasting legacy. The global outcry following the Sapphire Coast tragedy has, really changed public perception of orca shows in a way that can't be undone. The glittering facade of the happy dancing whale has been shattered, replaced by a more somber and informed understanding of the reality behind the performance. Audiences are no longer able to watch an orca leap on command without thinking of Sable's worn teeth or Jessica's final terrifying moments. This newfound awareness has led to a significant decline in ticket sales for marine parks that feature theatrical cetacean shows. The public's appetite for this kind of entertainment is waning, as more people vote with their wallets in favor of a more ethical and compassionate approach to wildlife. This shift in public opinion has forced the industry to evolve or risk becoming obsolete. Many aquariums and marine parks have begun to phase out their circus-style orca shows, moving away from the loud music, flashy tricks, and choreographed routines. In their place, a new model is emerging: educational presentations. These experiences focus on showcasing the orca's natural behaviors from a safe, protected contact distance. Trainers act as narrators, explaining the science behind the animal's hunting techniques, social structures, and communication, all while the orcas simply behave as they would in a more natural state. This approach transforms the experience from pure spectacle into a genuine learning opportunity, fostering respect rather than just applause. Furthermore, the end of breeding programs in many facilities marks a monumental turning point. By committing to stop breeding orcas in captivity, these institutions are ensuring that the current generation of whales will be the last to endure a life in concrete tanks. This decision is a tacit admission that the model of self-sustaining captive populations is ethically untenable. It signals a future where aquariums will no longer be destinations to see live orcas, but will instead become centers for rescue, rehabilitation, and advocacy for their wild cousins. The focus is shifting from keeping animals in tanks to keeping them in the ocean where they truly belong, a profound change in mission. This transition away from spectacle is a crucial step toward a better future. It requires us to redefine our expectations of what a marine park should be. It challenges us to find wonder in the quiet observation of a magnificent animal rather than in a highly produced, artificial performance. By supporting institutions that are making these brave and necessary changes, we can accelerate the end of an era built on entertainment and usher in a new one founded on principles of respect, education, and true conservation. The end of the spectacle is not the end of our connection to these animals. It is the beginning of a more honest and honorable one. Jessica Redcliffe's story is, honestly, a heartbreaking tale of passion and tragedy, but her legacy must not be defined solely by its horrific ending. She dedicated her life to the animals she loved, driven by a profound desire to understand them and to share their magic with the world. Her innovative and compassionate training methods were, at their core, an attempt to build a bridge of communication and trust between two vastly different species. While her ultimate faith in that bond was tragically misplaced, the spirit behind her work, one of deep love and boundless fascination for the natural world, is a powerful message that must be carried forward into the future. To truly honor Jessica's legacy is to embrace her passion while learning from her mistakes. It means channeling our collective fascination with orcas into actions that genuinely protect them. This involves advocating for stronger legal protections for wild orca populations, fighting against ocean pollution and noise that threaten their habitats, and supporting sustainable practices that ensure the health of our marine ecosystems. It means taking the love for these animals that Jessica inspired in so many and directing it toward meaningful conservation efforts that allow them to thrive in their natural home, free from the stresses and dangers of captivity. Her story serves as a permanent, solemn reminder that our love for wild animals must always be tempered with a profound respect for their inherent wildness. We cannot allow our desire for proximity and connection to overshadow the fundamental truth that these are powerful, complex beings with needs that we cannot fully meet in a man-made environment. The greatest honor we can pay to Jessica is to ensure that no other trainer is ever put in such a perilous position again. This means upholding the strictest safety protocols, ending close contact interactions, and prioritizing human and animal welfare over the demands of entertainment and profit. Jessica Redcliffe's spirit lives on, not in the empty stadium of a now silent aquarium, but in every person who looks at the ocean with a renewed sense of wonder and respect. It lives on in the advocates fighting for seaside sanctuaries and in the scientists working to protect wild pods. Her enduring message is one of love for the ocean's giants, but it is now intertwined with a crucial, hard-won lesson about the limits of our control. By building a future where orcas are respected as wild beings, we not only prevent future tragedies but also create the most fitting and lasting tribute to a life given in the passionate pursuit of connection. The story of Jessica Redcliffe and Sable is truly a haunting narrative that will forever echo within the walls of aquatic entertainment and marine biology. It serves as a permanent, chilling testament to the profound chasm that exists between humanity and the wild. The tragedy that unfolded under the bright lights of the Sapphire Coast Aquarium was not merely an accident, it was the inevitable culmination of a system that placed entertainment value above the intrinsic nature of a powerful, intelligent predator. The most critical lesson learned is that a bond with a wild animal, no matter how deep it may feel, can never fully erase the millions of years of instinct coded into its DNA. True respect for these creatures begins with acknowledging this fundamental truth with unwavering humility. This incident has forced us to confront the uncomfortable reality of captivity. For decades, we justified concrete tanks and choreographed shows with the noble aims of education and conservation, but Jessica's death exposed the fatal flaw in that logic. We learned that the chronic stress inflicted by a captive environment, the confined spaces, the unnatural noises, the forced performances, creates a psychologically damaged animal, not a happy ambassador. The lessons from that day are etched into the industry's new rulebook, demanding that we prioritize the well-being of these animals over our desire to be entertained by them. It is a lesson that shifts our focus from control to compassion, from showmanship to stewardship. Furthermore, we have been starkly reminded of the importance of heeding warning signs, no matter how subtle they may seem. Sable's worn teeth, her frantic circling, and the gate ramming incident were not mere quirks or passing moods. They were desperate communications of her deteriorating mental state. The failure to correctly interpret and act upon these signals proved to be a fatal mistake. This lesson extends beyond the world of animal training and into our broader relationship with the natural world. Nature constantly sends us signals about its health and its limits. Ignoring these warnings, whether from a captive orca or a changing climate, is a gamble that we can no longer afford to take. Ultimately, the tragedy compels us to redefine our relationship with wildlife. It demands that we move beyond a desire to dominate and control and towards a partnership based on distance, observation, and profound respect. The lessons forged in the churning waters of that tank are not about blame, but about responsibility. They call on us to create a future where the wonder of nature does not require its imprisonment. We must learn to find awe in the untamed, to protect animals in their natural habitats, and to ensure that a tragedy like the one that befell Jessica Redcliffe never, ever happens again. Jessica Redcliffe's name is now inextricably linked to a moment of unimaginable terror, but her true legacy should not be confined to her final moments. She was, at her core, a person of immense passion, a woman who dedicated her life to the creatures that captured her imagination as a child. Her spirit was one of boundless love for the ocean and its inhabitants. To honor her is to carry that passion forward, but to temper it with the wisdom gained from her loss. Her legacy calls on us to transform our fascination with orcas into meaningful action, to become the advocates that these magnificent animals so desperately need in a world that continues to threaten their existence in the wild. Honoring Jessica means championing a future where no orca has to endure the conditions that led to Sable's breaking point. It means lending our voices and support to the development of seaside sanctuaries, providing a dignified and peaceful retirement for the remaining generation of captive whales. It means demanding an end to the spectacle, turning away from circus-like shows and supporting institutions that prioritize genuine education and conservation. Jessica's legacy is a call to action, urging us to build a world where our connection with wildlife is measured not by our proximity to it, but by our commitment to its freedom and well-being. Her story is a powerful, enduring reminder that nature's power is absolute and commands our utmost respect. The love and admiration we feel for wild animals cannot be a justification for placing them or ourselves in peril. Jessica's passion must inspire us to protect these animals on their own terms, within their own world. Her memory is best served not by romanticizing her bond with Sable, but by acknowledging the harsh reality of it and vowing to learn from it. The ultimate tribute to her life is to ensure that future generations can marvel at orcas where they belong, thriving in the vast, untamed expanse of the ocean. As we conclude this story, we are left with a message of hope, born from immense sorrow. Jessica Redcliffe's life, though tragically cut short, has become a catalyst for profound and lasting change. Her passion continues to inspire, while her death serves as a solemn guiding principle for a more compassionate future. By sharing her story, we keep her spirit alive and work towards a world that respects the wild, honors life, and ensures that the lessons from that fateful day on the North Carolina coast are never forgotten. Let her legacy be one of respect, a respect that extends to all living things.